Welcome to hour number 3 of a Monday Live right here on the early line on SportsGrid. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. Not just any ordinary Monday, by the way. It's a national championship Monday tonight in Houston. It's 1 versus 2. For the 5th time in the history of the college football playoff, a perfect undefeated national champion will be crowned between Michigan and Washington. Both teams entered tonight a perfect 14-0 with a national title up for grabs. Donnie, we asked the public to end out hour number 2, what we have in store tonight to start here in hour number 3. Michigan currently a 4.5-point favorite. The over-under is 56.5. So what was the best bet according to the public? It was the underdog in a big way. More than 50% of the vote, the Fade the Public poll at SportsGrid TV on Twitter, thinking the Huskies are going to cover as a 4.5-point dog. And you know, Donnie, if the public loves Washington that much to cover the spread, they're picking UW to win outright to pull off another upset now in a national championship game.
Hate it or love it, Ben. What's that? The underdogs are on top in this one, and people love the underdog story.
Come on,
yes, see that? Busted out right in the middle of it. But if you are looking at Michigan, do we think also, is there a hatred towards Michigan? Because again, for most of the season, hater number 1 was right here, Donnie Rightside against Michigan. But I like to make money more than I like to hate football teams. So I actually think Michigan wins this game. But what would this poll have been, to be honest, Ben? Let's just say if we worked it. Who's going to win the national championship? No point spread. Washington and Michigan. Do you think those total numbers would have changed here drastically if people say, like, well, I don't know if they can win, but they can keep it close? Do you think that would have been a viable chance where it would have been like maybe more 50-50 at that point?
Yeah, I think so, Donnie. Let's bring in that SportsGrid radio audience here to start off hour number 3. He's Donnie. I'm Ben. You're listening to the early line on Sirius XM channel 159. All of our other radio terrestrial affiliates now in the fold as well. A preview of the national championship game tonight in college football between Michigan and Washington. Donnie, I think there's a lot of people that believe the Wolverines cheated and acted outside of the guidelines that are in place for college football. There is no doubt. Michigan cheated. Michigan had numerous rule violations based on what you can do from in-person scouting. Does everybody steal signs? Yes. Does everybody have an orchestrated spy network to send in-person scouts on behalf of a football program to games? Absolutely not. How serious are those ramifications? We'll find out probably in a couple of months once the NCAA, that moves at the pace of molasses, wraps up its investigation. But what we know for tonight is Michigan is booked as a favorite for that national championship game. And I think there is some public perception, Donnie, that the underdog in this Washington team under Kalen DeBoer with Michael Penix Jr. and how explosive the offense is going to show a Michigan team that this is how you play football. I don't necessarily agree, because outside of the sign stealing, you condemn them. I was very harsh on the maize and blue as well. This is a really good football team. Michigan is just flat out an elite football team on the defensive side of the football, first and foremost. And we saw that in the Rose Bowl against the athletic and explosive offense that Alabama possessed. There have been some conversations this year, Donnie, that the Big Ten defenses with Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, Iowa, so on and so forth, ranking near the top of the country is only because they play in the Big Ten. And then I think throughout bowl season we have seen, and certainly in that CFP semifinal, that Michigan's defense was just really good because Michigan is just really good defensively. Ergo, the 4th and goal stop in the Rose Bowl in overtime against Jalen Milroe and the Crimson Tide. So like you, Donnie, I actually think Michigan wins tonight. I do have a national championship ticket that I took on Washington midway through that Sugar Bowl between the Huskies and the Longhorns, when it became clear to me that with Washington up by double digits, they were going to win a national title. So I have that. And I also have some positions on the Wolverines, who I think are going to win this football game outright. And that's where I begin. Now, from the total perspective, Donnie, you're backing the Michigan Wolverines. We did the correlated process of, if Michigan wins, does that mean the defense is strong and the game goes under? Or if Washington wins and pulls off the outright upset, does that mean we see a ton of points and the game total goes over? Where do you fall on the over-under of 56.5?
I think we got it right here. I think the poll has it right, I should say, Ben. Slight favorite here to the over 56.5, because I just look at it by saying, I think Michigan is going to be able to score tonight. And I do think Washington will. Well, Donnie, of course, that means you're going to get a total. But hear me out on the thinking on this. Let's just say, like, late in that football game, like, Washington isn't going to be built on the ground themselves. And the reason I bring this up is, let's just say, worst case scenario for Washington, they're down 24-3 at the break, Ben. Are they trying to work on their running game? Or are they just throwing deep and throwing every single play, which means big play, incomplete pass, or a turnover, which means Michigan can cash in on the other side? So I think the public got it right here with a slight total over 56.5, because I just brought up to you. Look, I understand Oregon is a faster pace, up-tempo team than the Michigan Wolverines, right? We even heard Nick Saban say, well, it's unfair. Like, Michigan actually huddled. What do you want me to do? We never see any teams that huddle, which is one of the more ridiculous notions I've seen here. But you're looking at teams like the Oregon Ducks who put up points, and they put up points against the Oregon Ducks. I look for more there. And again, getting back to the point, you have two teams in a perfect atmosphere on a fast track. We're not worried about a slippery surface. We're not worried about rain in the forecast, freezing cold temperatures. Hey, we can't kick a field goal this way, Ben, because the wind is blowing in this direction. We're going to have a clean surface tonight to get after. And also, by the way, quickly here looking at Michigan. What if I told you, Ben, like, Michigan loves their head coach, man. Like, they're like, he gets suspended. It's his fault. They're taking a knee. And J.J. McCarthy after every game basically crying, like, I can't wait to get my coach back. Even the coaches cry after games because they want Harbaugh back. Let me tell you on this, when they go, like, before the game, hey, guys, close the doors. Let's get in. Let's bring it in here. Before we say a prayer here to go out there, it's my last ride with you boys tonight. Let's make it a big one. I accepted the job for the Los Angeles Chargers. Whoa, you want that information up front, Ben? Am I breaking anything here that Jim Harbaugh's last game is tonight here, and that's why they're going to win the national championship? Could be. Extra incentive.
I mean, listen, it's Black Monday around the National Football League where we will see many head coaching vacancies arise.
Raiders
and
now?
Jim Harbaugh has long been tied to the NFL. In fact, there were reports, despite the sign-stealing scandal playing out, that Harbaugh was offered a long-term, lifetime-type contract extension by Ward Manuel and Michigan Athletics. And the only caveat was, Jim, you can't interview for NFL jobs. And that contract extension has not been signed. He has been often asked about his future. In Harbaugh colloquialism, he has said, a future, I hope to have one. I don't know necessarily, Donnie, if this is Jim Harbaugh's final game in college football as a head coach at his alma mater, but it certainly appears like that will be the case. We mentioned the head coaching vacancies in the NFL at this moment. The Raiders, the Raiders, the Panthers, the Chargers, and now the Falcons and the Commanders, all of those to keep in mind. We'll have plenty more around the national championship. A triple option, our favorite side, total and prop for tonight's title game in Houston later on in hour number 3. But we get you set for the postseason with the injury analysis and insight with the Pro Football Doc up next.
New sports books operating for licenses, and a lot of news always coming out of there. One of the fresh sports betting states.
Well, they're a little behind the ball there, so I don't know if they'll be at the starting line in North Carolina. But yeah, a really interesting mix of applicants this early on so far.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, we saw a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
favorite. I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby. The money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
My best bet is Michael Penix to over 309.5.
Let's shop around. Let's get active, and let's get the best of the numbers here, Joe.
I believe if Michigan in this ball game can run the football, work off of play action, they can move the football, put up points. Does fall on McCarthy, but I like Michigan's chances in this ball game.
National championship set. Washington against Michigan.
Brothers in arms tonight. This is it.
This is the most excited I think I've ever been for a day of work in my entire life.
That tells you how good this league is. Jeff, your mind. Big 12. Who's the team to beat?
Well, it's always Kansas. I don't care who comes in the league. And I love Kelvin Sampson, what he's done at Houston. I don't care. So Marquette, to me, is the best backcourt in the country. Tyler Kolek's the best point guard. Cam Jones is an elite scorer who just plays with such a good pace, and he's so smart.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
We spent all offseason where the NFL said, hey, just so you guys know, running backs don't matter. If we then this year give the MVP to a running back, the irony. I am disappointed that they lost to FAU because secretly I don't really like this FAU team very much. I don't know. They're just not for me. And now they've completely legitimized the Owls.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Yay, congratulations, but the game was over at that point, so another one of those terrible beats. If you had 3.5, 4, even 4.5, this was a 10-point game until the final closing seconds.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The end of the regular season and the 2023 NFL campaign now setting the stage for the playoffs. 14 teams, 7 in each conference, still in the chase for that Super Bowl 58 championship and its Lombardi Trophy. We welcome you back to a Monday live right here on the early line. Ben, Donnie, and now joining us, the man in the middle. It is our pro football doc, Dr. David Chao. He and his team doing exceptional work at sportsinjurycentral.com. That's SIC Central.com. And Dr. Chao, we're glad to have you here to look at the end of the regular season and how health is for all of these 14 teams that will play in the playoffs this January. Thank you for joining us here on this Monday on the early line.
Great to be here, and the season's not over, lots to go, but actually in some ways our life is simpler because it's only 6 games this weekend, but we actually end up doing a deeper dive on all the field views and 6 scores.
You can see those 6 scores and those field views at sicscore.com. So, Dr. Chao, a couple of interesting coaching decisions yesterday in games that had circumstances to them, playing some starters out there. Let's start at the top with the Detroit Lions' outstanding rookie tight end, Sam Laporta. On one of his first catches of the game, he set a rookie tight end record with 82 grabs in a single season. That a new NFL record. His 10th receiving touchdown of the year, tying Mike Ditka and Rob Gronkowski for the most receiving scores by a rookie tight end in NFL history. But later on in the opening half, was injured, had to be carted off into the halftime locker room. Dr. Chao, what is Sam Laporta's forecast for this postseason with the Detroit Lions?
First, let me say this. Of course, there's lots of different philosophies about rest versus rust, but the fact is you cannot rest everyone. There's 53 active guys on the team, on the roster, and you activate 46 guys to play the game. Can you play backups more than starters? Sure, but you can't sit everybody. And Sam Laporta's a rookie, so it's really easy to second guess and say, oh, he shouldn't have been out there. But the reality is you had to put somebody out there. And quite honestly, the Lions started the game short at tight end, at the tight end position, with number 2 and 4 already out. I would expect they need to add a tight end now. Is it Zach Ertz? I mean, he's been sitting on the sidelines. I don't know. But Sam Laporta will be out for the playoffs, unfortunately. There's good news and bad news. And we echo, and this is from in-game video, what Dan Campbell said afterwards. Actually, we said it first. It's not a good injury, but it's not surgical. But he's going to miss some significant time, unfortunately. And Dan Campbell said, it's not as bad as it looked, and I'm paraphrasing, but the news isn't good either, and they're waiting officially MRI. By video, we believe it was a lateral collateral ligament, posterolateral corner sprain. ligament sprain, non-surgical. And if you go to the Twitter timeline, you can see the video. The knee's not supposed to bend that way. Maybe associated bone bruise. Look, if the Lions can make it to Las Vegas in the Super Bowl, is it possible that Sam Laporta could come back? I think it's possible, but it remains to be seen.
Doc, if you played for the Eagles yesterday and your last name was Brown, it wasn't a good day. A.J. Brown and Sidney Brown, a safety for the Philadelphia Eagles. Sidney Brown carted off the field. Looks like he might have a more serious injury, but the focus certainly going to be on A.J. Brown. Doc, what did you see from that injury on the Meadowlands turf? And also, how's that going to hold up for A.J. Brown with the game coming up next Monday night in Tampa Bay?
Yeah, obviously the ACL tear for Sidney Brown is not good, season ending. Not only is it not good for this season and the playoffs, it's not good for next season as a defensive back and the start of next season. A.J. Brown's fate, I think, is better. By video, it appears to be an isolated, mild MCL sprain. I think it's possible that A.J. Brown might have limped through the game if it were different circumstances. I think he's going to try and play this next week in the playoffs. His linear routes will be fine. Cutting off that right knee is going to be a potential issue. I don't think he'll be 100%, but A.J. Brown can catch the ball a lot of different ways. He's not just a speed cut separation guy. So I think he will be out there. How effective will be the question. And obviously the two Browns weren't the only ones that hurt. Their quarterback, Hurts, was hurt too.
So that's the next question, Dr. Chao. What about the quarterback throwing A.J. Brown the football? Late in the opening half, Jalen Hurts had his finger on his right throwing hand get twisted in a way that looked like a finger should not, especially for a quarterback on that right throwing hand. Dr. Chao, we saw the video from the game broadcast itself. What is the prognosis on Jalen Hurts and his status for the postseason?
Yeah, and when he was holding up his right hand, he wasn't saying you're number one, and he wasn't obviously, doing anything else. He was just showing the world the finger, and fingers aren't supposed to bend that way. It's actually called, there's a medical term for it. It's actually called the swan neck deformity. Now, we may have seen it on grandma and grandpa and rheumatoid arthritis and deformities, but there also can be acute swan neck deformities where you dislocate, injure associated tendons and ligaments. And that's what, Jalen Hurts had. Follow through on a pass and hit his middle finger, acutely injured it, swan neck deformity. The bad news is you basically dislocate your finger and tear some associated ligaments and tendons. The good news is it typically does not need surgery. The good news is because Jalen Hurts has an index finger dominant grip when he throws the football, he can still grip it and rip it. And he did return to the game briefly before leaving, partly maybe due to scoreboard, etc. I expect, he says he's day-to-day. I expect he'll have some sort of splint tape on the finger, treat it conservatively. The good news is the gripping motion with that type of swan neck deformity is still there. So even though he's got an index finger dominant throwing grip, the middle finger still will be able to function. Although obviously it's a painful injury and it's a grotesque deformity.
Doc, taking a look at a game that was played in the rain in Baltimore on Saturday. My goodness, the Pittsburgh Steelers certainly happy with the victory and heading to the playoffs, but maybe at a cost of losing their best overall football player in T.J. Watt. Talk to us about what you saw from the injury, and also, would this have been different if the outcome was a dry surface and on AstroTurf?
Potentially, yes. We never know for sure, but look, in my experience, 17 years in the NFL, whenever it was a wet, rainy game, especially on grass, there were fewer traumatic type injuries like high ankle sprains or ACLs or more significant ligament tears. TJ Watt still injured his MCL. It's a sprain. It's said to be grade 2, which fits. We thought grade 1 or 2. We never thought grade 3. Unlucky, friendly fire almost after the play. The bad news is he's an edge rusher, and you need to get around the edge. Very hard to get around the edge with an MCL. I do not see TJ Watt playing unless the Steelers go relatively deep into the playoffs. Certainly not this week. Next week would be a stretch. The conference championship, becomes potentially realistic. But that's a ways away right now. When you lose your best player, best defender, it's an uphill climb for the Steelers. But they are in the playoffs, and alive is alive.
Yeah. The Steelers do have the longest price, however, to win Super Bowl 58 at 130-1. So 14 teams now in the postseason, Dr. Chao. Here are the top 10 prices to win this year's Lombardi Trophy. Only about 40 seconds left in this segment. Who is the healthiest team entering the NFL playoffs?
Well, the Rams are actually among the healthier teams right now. They're peaking at the right time with the Stafford Goff pseudo trade reunion and Matthew Stafford back in Detroit. The other thing in terms of health is don't sleep on the Texans. I get it. The Texans got beat by the Cleveland Browns in Houston 36-22 in week 16 recently. But that was a game without CJ Stroud, and that was a game without 100% Nico Collins. And so the Texans are healthier for this one.
A 2.5-point home underdog in that rematch against Cleveland to start off Super Wild Card Weekend. Dr. David Chao, the Pro Football Doc, we appreciate the time as always. Thank you for joining us here on the Early Line. The Prop Perspective up next on TEL.
New sports books operating for licenses, and a lot of news always coming out of there. One of the fresh sports betting states.
Well, they're a little behind the ball there, so I don't know if they'll be at the starting line in North Carolina. But yeah, a really interesting mix of applicants this early on so far.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division favorite.
I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
My best bet is Michael Penix Jr. over 309.5.
Let's shop around. Let's get active, and let's get the best of the numbers here. So
I believe if Michigan in this ball game can run the football, work off of play action, they can move the football, put up points. Does fall on McCarthy, but I like Michigan's chances in this ball game.
National championship set. Washington against Michigan.
Brothers in arms today. This is it.
this is the most excited I think I've ever been for a day of work in my entire life.
That tells you how good this league is. Jeff, you're mine. Big 12. Who's the team to beat?
Well, it's always Kansas. I don't care who comes in the league. And I love Kelvin Sampson, what he's done at Houston. I don't care. So Marquette, to me, is the best backcourt in the country. Tyler Kolek's the best point guard. Cam Jones is an elite scorer who just plays with such a good pace, and he's so smart.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
We spent all offseason where the NFL said, hey, just so you guys know, running backs don't matter. If we then this year give the MVP to a running back, the irony. I am disappointed that they lost to FAU because secretly I don't really like this FAU team very much. I don't know. They're just not for me. And now they've completely legitimized the Owls.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Yay, congratulations, but the game was over at that point, so another one of those terrible beats. If you had 3.5, 4, even 4.5, this was a 10-point game until the final closing seconds.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Live right here on this Monday on the early line. It's Ben, it's Donnie, and more importantly, the man now in the middle providing that prop perspective, not only for this Monday night, but looking back on the regular season in the National Football League. All the tools that he learned in 2023, now into the NFL postseason. Tom Vecchio joins us live right here on this Monday on behalf of FanDuel, the jack of all trades, getting you set with everything you need to know. Vecchio, as always, we appreciate the time. It's been a few weeks since we've had you here on this Monday. Hope the holidays were great. Looking forward to getting all the prop perspective here in 2024.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy New Year. I'm glad to be back. I think I have some interesting takes when it comes to the playoffs. I think there's a lot of opportunity, especially with differential between odds for player MVP and their team Super Bowl odds. I'm ready to go.
Vecchio, as we look back one final time at last night in the regular season finale, game 272 out of 272 in Miami between the Dolphins and the Bills. Josh Allen threw for a ton of yards, ran for 67 more, had 2 touchdowns through the air as well, albeit with 2 interceptions and a fumble. As you look at what Buffalo will bring when there's a 5 straight into the postseason and a banged-up Dolphins side on the other end of the spectrum, what is your thought about how the season ended in the hunt for the AFC East title?
I was on the under last night, so I was happy with the outcome. And realistically, the Josh Allen interception prop is like I know what do you want to call it? Like a blue chip stock or like a mutual fund that just pays out dividends like almost every single week. Like that's what we're getting from him. I think he's only missed it 3 times this year. So fire up a Josh Allen interception prop yet again. I think the Bills are a team that you don't want to be facing at this point in the season. Their defense has really turned up. Their offense, while it may be inconsistent at times, there's still a offense to be feared. And I think James Cook will continue to play a big role pushing towards 20 total touches on a weekly basis. So his combined rushing plus receiving props are probably my favorite when it comes to the Bills moving forward.
Yeah. Tom, AFC is set here. Obviously, the Ravens, Bills, Chiefs, Texans, Browns, Dolphins, and the Steelers sneaking in that 7th spot here. If we remove, let's just say, the Ravens and the Bills from the conversation, who would you be focused on here that either A, can do some damage in the playoffs, or most importantly, Tom, make you some money with some props and maybe some victories?
That's going to be with the Browns, and it stems largely from their defense. Obviously, Joe Flacco has been great in this short time, but their defense is awesome, and they can turn the ball over. They can flip a game before you know it. You know, and realistically, I think the change from the Browns in terms of their offensive play calling has been noticeable, where they are passing it at a pretty high rate under Joe Flacco, which is not something that we've traditionally seen from the Browns as a run-heavy team. So Joe Flacco passing attempts prop is probably the best spot to go in. You know, just taking a ticket on the Browns now, they win around whoever they get matched up, like they can beat anyone. And if it comes to the Ravens game, if they beat the Ravens, that ticket is going to be extremely valuable moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely so. Plus 135 right now for Baltimore, booked as the favorites to win the AFC. It's a minus money odds-on favorite in the other conference, the San Francisco 49ers at minus 120. Behind them, the Cowboys and the Lions in the 2-3 spots in terms of the seed line. The Eagles have the 3rd best price to win the conference championship at 7-1 as the top wild card team. So, Vecchio, as you look at the NFC playoff bracket, knowing that San Francisco is an odds-on favorite, is there any other plus money value with the 6 other teams in the NFC playoff picture?
That would be with the Lions at plus 2,100, and I would love if Sam Laporta didn't get hurt yesterday, but this stems from the fact that the Lions cannot play the 49ers in the 2nd round. Based on the seeds, they cannot play them because they're the 2 seed, and that the 4 or the 5 is going to end up, or whoever it might be, is going to end up playing the 49ers. So if you take the Lions at plus 2,100, and then moving into that 2nd round, whoever they get matched up with, if they play the Cowboys, they can beat the Cowboys. We saw it a couple weeks ago. Like, they can go head-to-head with them. And again, they may not be able to beat the 49ers, but it leaves you that hedge spot, cash out, whatever you want to talk about at that point. I will take them at plus 2,100. Same thing with the Browns. I want to take these longer shots that have that ability to move past 1 or 2 rounds, and then you just take cash out, take a little bit of profit, and move on.
Tom, wild card games are out for this weekend. Doubleheader on Saturday action, tripleheader on Sunday, and then what we love in the NFL is even more football on Monday Night Football. That game is the Philadelphia Eagles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But if we're lining this up, we always get this, like the first look at the playoff matchups that come out. You see the totals, you see the sides. What stood out to you, Tom, the minute you saw some of these lines come here?
It's going to be going to probably somewhere like Browns, Texans, or Rams, Lions. Not betting the total to start, but betting live overs, especially 51.5 for Rams Lions, I think is way too high. A lot of these playoff games that we've seen over the past few years, they start off really scripted. These coaches play things super tight. So they start off really scripted, lack of scoring, and then we see an explosion of scoring in the second half. So live overs is the spot to go. So maybe you want to bet under 51.5 and then get like a middle, under 51.5, take a live over. That would be my spot to go.
We're seeing some lines already work. Buffalo now a double-digit favorite, 10.5 points in the Bills' favor as they will host the Pittsburgh Steelers to start off the 3-game slate on Sunday. The Cowboys have added on the hook a 7.5-point favorite against the Green Bay Packers. Vecchio, from that prop perspective, are there any areas, any players you are going to keep an eye on when those props become available that you think will sit in a favorable matchup for the opening round of the postseason?
It might start with one of the Green Bay receivers, who's ever the lowest, whether it's Dobbs, whether it's Wicks, whether it's Reach, who's ever the lowest, because realistically, Green Bay is going to be in a passing game script. And yes, Cowboys defense is great. We know all this, but if they're going to have to pass the ball, I want to take the player that has the lowest receiving prop and just roll with him, because Love is going to have to sling the ball. They're not going to be able to move the ball effectively with Dillon or Jones on the ground. So just take the lowest of the three options there.
Super Bowl odds here to win it all. I always like to say, like before the season, you take a couple shots that you think make some sense. Took the Baltimore Ravens here on the FanDuel Sportsbook to win the Super Bowl at an 18-1 price. They're now plus 350. But Tom, you know which one I actually thought I was smarter on? I said, you know what? I don't really love the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I got them at 50-1. As long as they make the playoffs, I'll be able to make money on that ticket. They made the playoffs. They're now sitting at plus, it's actually 130-1 now for them to win the Super Bowl. So obviously I'm not going to make money on that ticket. But if we're looking forward to the Super Bowl odds here, tickets that you're taking out, or is it just so simple? Hey, look, it's going to be the Niners and the Ravens in the final, and away you go there.
Yeah, I think I might continue to roll with the Lions and the Browns as my two. But when it comes to the odds for the Super Bowl, the best way to attack it is via the MVP market. And as you can see there on the screen, mine is Christian McCaffrey at plus 950, because they're plus 230 to win the Super Bowl, right? And granted, Purdy's at plus 500 for MVP, but there's a very realistic outcome that if the 49ers win the Super Bowl, it's going to be because of CMC. And I said this last year going into Chiefs-Eagles. Don't take the Chiefs' money line. You take Mahomes for MVP at plus 250 when the Chiefs' money line was like plus 124. If they win the game, it's going to be because of Mahomes. So if the 49ers win the Super Bowl, it's likely going to be because of CMC, and that number is going to plummet if they reach the conference championships.
And it is really interesting, right? Because a running back has a very high bar to clear if they're going to win the regular season MVP award. Not necessarily the case for a position player, non-quarterback, come a Super Bowl matchup as well. Love the look there, Vecchio. And just to clarify here, you mentioned as we were talking about teams you think provide some value in their respective conferences to make some noise to win multiple games in the postseason. The Lions at 21-1, the Browns at 31-1. Those are their Super Bowl 58 prices as compared to the respective conference numbers. Why do you like the Super Bowl odds more than the prices for the Browns or the Lions to win the AFC or NFC respectively?
It's really just because they're longer odds, and the path to the Lions getting to the conference championship, I think, it's obviously easier. So like I said, they can't play the 49ers in the second round. So if they win one round, they match up against the Cowboys. I think they can beat the Cowboys. And then at that point, they'll be going against the 49ers. We all assume that would be the case. And that number is going to be dramatically lower, because if the 49ers lose, the Lions might be the odds-on favorite against someone coming out of the AFC. So I just want to take the longest odds possibly available.
Gotcha.
It's interesting that we do take a look at the Detroit Lions, because when the lines first came out for me, Tom, I thought the most disrespectful line of the week was not even like, oh, look at that, Tampa Bay's a dog to the Eagles not playing well. I thought it was the Detroit Lions here only laying 3 points at home in the Dome where they played so well. It goes to show you how good the Rams are. But yes, I do think there is value on the Detroit Lions. Quickly here, let's see a little NBA action tonight. Suns, Clippers out west. The Big Three looks to be in the lineup here for both squads tonight. You take a look at the FanDuel Sportsbook, a 230 total in this game, a 6-point favorite for the Clippers. Winner in this game, side in this game, props in this game, Tom, what are you looking at?
Well, big three for both teams is something that I'm hesitant to agree with because Durant returned last night for the Suns, and they said he was under a minutes restriction, and he played 36 minutes, which doesn't really seem like a minutes restriction, but they're on the second night of a back-to-back, so maybe they pushed him out there knowing that they would rest him today. We don't have confirmation whether he's in or out of the lineup, so I just want to clarify that. We're not sure if he's actually going to play. If he's out, Booker PRA. Booker averages 28, 7, and 5 per 36 when Durant is off the court. So it'd be great if Durant plays, but Booker is the PRA bet if he sits.
Yeah, and that will be interesting as well for the Clippers. Second leg of a back-to-back in L.A., although they did lose last night to the Lakers by 3 as a 4.5-point favorite, snapping a 5-game win streak for the Clips. Quickly here, Vecchio, less than a minute remaining. One other NBA to get to out in Indianapolis. The Pacers hosting the NBA's best team, the Boston Celtics. The C's a 4-point favorite. The total, 244.5, as is every game with Indiana. Do you expect offense tonight in Indy?
Yeah, plenty of offense. Tatum and Porzingis are both listed as questionable. If one of them sits, Derek White or Jaylen Brown, they see an increase in offensive usage. But Al Horford rebound props could be the spot to go, especially with the pace of the game. Celtics are 18th in pace. Pacers are number 1. A lot of extra chances for Horford tonight.
Not just the prop perspective from Vecchio, by the way. He told us during the commercial break he's on the Huskies plus 4.5 in the national championship. A preview next.
New sports books operating for licenses, and a lot of news always coming out of there. One of the fresh sports betting states.
Well, they're a little behind the ball there, so I don't know if they'll be at the starting line in North Carolina. But yeah, a really interesting mix of applicants this early on so far.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, we saw a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division favorite.
I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
My best bet is Michael Penix to over 309.5.
Let's shop around. Let's get active, and let's get the best of the number here. So
I believe if Michigan in this ball game can run the football, work off of play action, they can move the football, put up points. Does fall on McCarthy, but I like Michigan's chances in this ball game.
National championship is set. Washington against Michigan.
Brothers in arms tonight. This is it.
This is the most excited I think I've ever been for a day of work in my entire life.
That tells you how good this league is. Jeff, you're mine. Big 12. Who's the team to beat?
Well, it's always Kansas. I don't care who comes in the league. And I love Kelvin Sampson, what he's done at Houston. I don't care. So Marquette, to me, is the best backcourt in the country. Tyler Kolek's the best point guard. Cam Jones is an elite scorer who just plays with such a good pace, and he's so smart.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
We spent all offseason where the NFL said, hey, just so you guys know, running backs don't matter. If we then this year give the MVP to a running back, the irony. I am disappointed that they lost to FAU because secretly I don't really like this FAU team very much. I don't know. They're just not for me. And now they've completely legitimized the Owls.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Yay, congratulations, but the game was over at that point, so another one of those terrible beats. If you had 3.5, 4, even 4.5, this was a 10-point game until the final closing seconds.
In-game live, prime time. Only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Isn't it only fitting for a college football playoff national championship game we run the triple option? Our favorite side, total, and prop for the final college football game until August of 2024. It is 1 versus 2. Tonight in Houston, there will be an undefeated national champion crowned with a perfect 15-0 record. Will it be the number 1 team in the country, the Michigan Wolverines, or that second-ranked team in all the land, the Washington Huskies? Donnie, let's start with the game, and then we will get into our picks for tonight's national championship game in H-Town. Again, the Maize and Blue booked as a 4.5-point favorite. The over-under up slightly from the opener last week. It was 54.5 about a week ago. It's now 56 and a hook. How do you break down tonight's national championship game between the Wolverines and the Huskies in Houston?
Yeah, the breakdown is going to be that Washington offense and how they're going to be able to handle that Michigan defense. Let's keep an eye on this because usually we say, like in college football, hey, this team is really good at stopping the run. So they hold them to 75, 70 yards per game. Okay, let's see if they get tested. But it's very rare in this day and age in college football, and even been in the Big Ten, that you're going to roll through a season giving up 150 passing yards per game, which equates to 5.8 yards per reception here, or per passing attempt, I should say, which again, Washington isn't your everyday team. This is the best group of wide receivers / quarterbacks that a team might face, not this year, Ben, like this decade. They're that talented at wide receiver, but something still resonates with me when defense wins championships. It just comes down to simple terms here, Ben. When you look at this football game, if you need a stop, which side are you looking at? And this isn't a disparaging part here for Washington's defense, which is a quality defense. They played in a more up-tempo conference. I get that here, but I just trust Michigan in a bigger moment to make a stop, similarly to what we saw in the college football semifinals. Where did you need a stop in that game? In overtime. 4th and goal here. What do you need to do? Come up with a stop against quarterback Jalen Milroe? They got that stop. I trust them a little bit more here. So I'll lean on the defensive side for Michigan as the key ingredient to say, hey, look, we're not going to shut down Washington's offense. I get that. But we can slow it down here, and I'll go with that. Michigan's defense for me is the side to watch tonight in this football game.
There is no doubt that when you compare units on the football field, probably the biggest matchup advantage is in favor of the Wolverines on the defensive side of the football. The best scoring defense in 2023, allowing less than 10 points per game. Second best total defense. Second best passing defense. 6th best rushing defense in all of the country. Washington, meanwhile, ranked bottom 5 in the Pac-12 in total pass and rushing defense in the conference. Bottom 15, allowing 263 yards per game through the air in all of the nation. But Washington is the ultimate bend but do not break defense, only allowing just about 23 points per game in terms of that scoring defensive component. That was in the top half of the Pac-12 conference this year. So they'll give you some yards, but then they tighten up. And Braylon Trice was an impact player in the Sugar Bowl against Texas. For me, Donnie, it is that Washington passing attack against the second best secondary in all of the sport. How much success can Michael Penix Jr. have relative against a Michigan defense that has only allowed 2 passers to throw for more than 200 yards this year? Talia Tagovailoa for Maryland threw for 247. In the game against the Buckeyes of Ohio State, Kyle McCord threw for 271 yards, but also 2 INTs. And Jalen Milroe only had 116 passing yards through the air against Michigan in the Rose Bowl. That is the key matchup that will determine a national champion, in my mind, in Houston tonight. So now our picks for the national championship game. Our favorite side, our favorite total, our favorite prop for the matchup between number 1 Michigan and number 2 Washington. Donnie, you shared earlier in the show, you don't really think the spread comes into play tonight. Whoever wins, more than likely to cover. So tell us, who wins and covers tonight in the national title game?
It's going to be the Michigan Wolverines for me. I just like the overall MO with this football team, and I don't want to hear even from their point of view. We've been through a lot. Now, your self-inflicted wounds, you've been through a lot. Your coach got suspended because he did things wrong, so it wasn't adversity placed on you from outside institutions. You did it yourself here, but still, you're able to persevere through that, even with your head coach not on the sideline, winning games convincingly on the road and in big environments here, which included the Rose Bowl game against Alabama, who we all know they weren't all that enthused to see once that popped up on their screen there the day that we decided, or the day that the committee decided of the top 4 in the college football playoff. But it's Michigan for me in this game. I just think they're going to be able to control the ground game. Washington does have a good defense, but gives up 4.5 yards per carry. That's Michigan's bread and butter. Blake Corum's going to have a very good game tonight on the ground. J.J. McCarthy's going to have chances to take shots deep down the field. I just think Michigan is the better overall team. And also, this coming from a guy, once again, who I can't stand Michigan. And don't think I'm going to be like, hey, it was so great to see Harbaugh hold up the national championship trophy. I want to throw up in my mouth actually talking about it. But if it's going to make me money and the better team here, I'm taking Michigan. They're going to win this football game tonight, Ben, and by margin.
And, Donnie, it will be interesting to discuss margin as well. 4.5-point spread in favor of the Maize and Blue. The last 5 national championship games have all been decided by at least 15 points, excluding last year's rout by the Bulldogs of Georgia over TCU, which was 65-7. In the 4 previous years, the average margin of victory was still 22 points per game. So Donnie is right in the thought that the spread probably does not come into play tonight. If Michigan is going to win, they can cover as a 4.5-point favorite. Michigan this year booked as a favorite in every single game, all 14. They have won all 14, and they are 8-5-1 against the number. Under Kalen DeBoer in the last 2 seasons, since he became the head man in Seattle at the start of 2022, Washington has been an underdog 5 times. They have won outright all 5 times, including in the Sugar Bowl in the second CFP semifinal over Texas. Now, as that game was playing out, and we sat there on In-Game Live All Access, or CFP semifinal special, I looked at Washington at 2-1 and jumped in at that price on the Huskies. Was not my best number, by the way. There were times that Washington entered college football playoff New Year's Day Monday as a plus 650 price, the longest number to win the national championship when they were an underdog entering the Pac-12 title game. It was 25-1. I just wanted to grab some on Washington. So take my own personal account into this. I'm looking at Michigan winning with an winning margin of 1 to 13 points at plus 175. I think Michigan is going to win this game outright. I do not expect it to be a rout of 15 or more or 14 or more as it pertains to this bet, as we have seen in the last 5 national championship games. Just agree with Donnie. I think Michigan has the edge tonight based on the matchup advantages where they can take advantage over a Washington team, limiting Michael Penix Jr. just barely. And if they hold him to 300 passing yards, that would be limiting Michael Penix Jr., but taking advantage on the ground on the other side. And I do think J.J. McCarthy has a good night. The number has been on the rise for his passing yards prop, Donnie. 192.5 at open, 199 in a hook at this moment. But Washington is a bottom 15 secondary in college football, allowing 263 yards per game. Now let's talk totals. Donnie, where do you see the best number tonight as it pertains to any of that scoring output?
I think this game can go over the total, but I didn't want to take that and say, let's just root for points the entire well. It is a national championship game. The stage is going to be massive. It's a new environment. Last week, both of these teams were playing in different buildings, in different cities. Now they're going to be in Houston. You're going to have that extended period of time to open the game. And also keep in mind, what did we see particularly focusing on the Rose Bowl? Commercials. Why do I bring that up? It's not because we hate it as watching the game, but also the players getting into a rhythm, which includes Washington here. If you're going to be playing 3 or 4 plays, punting or taking a timeout and taking a 3-minute commercial break, I think that's going to be a lot of disjointedness to start the game. The reason why I took the under 28.5 in the first half is, Ben, that hook is massive. That means they need more than 4 touchdown scoring drives here in order to get over that total. Sure, field goals are going to play into it here, but if you're just being honest, you might be looking at 1 6-minute drive by Michigan that ends with a field goal in the first half to establish what they want to do. Should be good enough here. Now, granted, yes, Washington is a great offense, and Michigan might counter, and you might have, 21-14 at the break. But I'm looking at it being college kids, big stage, feeling out process, commercials, extra long pregame. I think they might be a little bit like, okay, let's get our feet under us. I'll just lean on the under 28.5 because I think that hook, Ben, is pretty big.
So I did mention, right, Michigan 1 to 13 points in terms of that winning margin, but I do have a position on UW as well, meaning I expect Washington to keep this game close. And I expect Washington has one way of doing that, to go over their team total of 24.5. Does not mean that's the only way Washington wins, and does not mean that if Washington goes over 24.5 points for that Huskies team total, Michigan cannot end up being tonight's national champion. But that's Washington's path to victory. Now, Michigan did enter the Rose Bowl, allowing 24 points in 2 consecutive games against both Maryland and Ohio State, not against Iowa, of course, who they shut out in that Big Ten championship game to end out the regular season. They allowed Alabama to score 20, and I thought the Crimson Tide was rather hesitant in terms of what they did from an offensive standpoint. That is not going to be the case for Kalen DeBoer, Michael Penix, Dylan Johnson, who is playing in this football game and has a prop out of 41.5 at this moment. I expect Washington to attack offensively, and I think if they are going to keep this game close whatsoever, it is a necessity for the Huskies to go over 24.5 points, which I think they will do in this football game tonight. Of course, they scored 37 against Texas in the Sugar Bowl. Favorite prop for the national championship game tonight is what?
Favorite prop for me, it's going to be Blake Corum, and it's going to be not just 1 touchdown because that price is ridiculous, even though I do think if you bet that, you are going to win money there. I'm going to take him to score 2 touchdowns tonight. Why? Because it's plus money, Ben, at a plus 105 here at the FanDuel Sportsbook. You're also taking a look at sometimes legacy type of seasons, Ben, scoring just about every. I think he actually did, correct me if I'm wrong, Ben, he scored every single game this season. Is that correct?
Every
touchdown?
Game. All 14.
Every single
All
game.
14,
so you take a look at being that Michigan leader in touchdowns here out of the backfield and being one of the most decorated more. It was one of those where you take a look at, Ben, you go back in time, and if you can equate it to the NFL, Mike Ditka, head coach of the Chicago Bears, Walter Payton never scored that touchdown in the Super Bowl. He said it was one of his biggest regrets, letting it go to the refrigerator Perry, getting one late here. I don't think that's going to be the case here. This is a coronation game for a team that expected to be a national championship contender, and also the guy that got them there, J.J. McCarthy played a big hand at quarterback, but it was Blake Corum here. He's going to get multiple red zone touches, 2 touchdowns for him tonight, coronation on the season and the national championship.
Blake Corum has scored multiple touchdowns in 6 consecutive games for the Wolverines. He actually had his first receiving touchdown of the year that started the scoring for Michigan in the Rose Bowl against Alabama. 25 rushing touchdowns. Only one other player in college football, Ollie Gordon II, the nation's leading rusher, had 20 or more rushing scores this season. If Michigan scores, and again, the total is 56.5, Michigan has a team total of 30.5, Blake Corum is going to find the end zone. It's why it's minus 400. Love the look for multiple scores. I would also add in this wrinkle, Blake Corum to be the first Michigan player to score a touchdown for the Maize and Blue at plus 130. Donnie, we saw Jalen Polk go off in the Sugar Bowl against Texas. I thought it was going to be Jalen McMillan. In fact, it turned out to be Jalen Polk. 5 receptions, 122 yards, and a touchdown. And I still believe you are getting a discounted number on Polk in tonight's national championship game. 1, because of how good Michigan's pass defense is, and also because Rome Odunze and Jalen McMillan are still there. 53.5 is the number on Polk. I think Michael Penix Jr. is going to air it out tonight. I think he goes over 292.5. I think Jalen Polk will help him do just that. A best bet for this Monday. Up next, live right here on the Early Line.
New sports books operating for licenses, and a lot of news always coming out of there, one of the fresh sports betting states.
Well, they're a little behind the ball there, so I don't know if they'll be at the starting line in North Carolina. But yeah, a really interesting mix of applicants this early on so far.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, we saw a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division favorite.
I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
My best bet is Michael Penix Jr. over 309.5.
Let's shop around. Let's get active and let's get the best of the number here. So
I believe if Michigan in this ball game can run the football, work off of play action, they can move the football, put up points. Does fall on McCarthy, but I like Michigan's chances in this ball game.
National championship is set. Washington against Michigan.
Brothers in arms tonight. This is it.
this is the most excited I think I've ever been for a day of work in my entire life.
That tells you how good this league is. Jeff, you're mine. Big 12. Who's the team to beat?
Well, it's always Kansas. I don't care who comes in the league. And I love Kelvin Sampson, what he's done at Houston. I don't care. So Marquette, to me, is the best backcourt in the country. Tyler Kolek's the best point guard. Cam Jones is an elite scorer who just plays with such a good pace, and he's so smart.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
We spent all offseason where the NFL said, hey, just so you guys know, running backs don't matter. If we then this year give the MVP to a running back, the irony.
I am disappointed that they lost to FAU because secretly I don't really like this FAU team very much. I don't know. They're just not for me. And now they've completely legitimized the Owls.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Yay, congratulations, but the game was over at that point, so another one of those terrible beats. If you had 3.5, 4, even 4.5, this was a 10-point game until the final closing seconds.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Closing out our 3 hours together, live right here on a Monday, but not just any usual Monday. It's National Championship Monday on the early line on SportsGrid. I'm Ben, he's Donnie, and even after we go, the SportsGrid app remains here. You can download it going to the Apple or the Play Store, or simply scan the QR code on your screen. 5-star plays in the SportsGrid app. Those are known as best bets for tonight's college football playoff national championship between number 1 Michigan and number 2 Washington in Houston. The Maize and Blue, a 4.5-point favorite. The over-under is 56.5. We will give you a best bet for the national title or elsewhere on this Monday. Before we say farewell or goodbye, it is time for bye. Donnie right side, what is the best bet on this Monday evening?
Nah, the best bet, it's got to come from the national championship game coming tonight, and it's simple for me. It's Michigan minus 4.5. We're going to lay the number here. I think Michigan wins this game by a touchdown or more. And my favorite part about this, be on the lookout for a Donnie Rightside tweet of around 12:45 a.m. where I didn't watch the game, rolled over and go, knew Michigan would take care of business. Cash it, pizza, check mark, cash bag. Let's go.
And then at 12:45 a.m. Eastern time on January 9th, will Jim Harbaugh be looking for a new job? We'll have that conversation in the coming days. My best bet is the man that I have trusted since he played his college football in Bloomington, Indiana. That's Michael Penix Jr. going over 292.5 passing yards tonight. I think there is a path for Washington to win this football game, and if so, that means Penix Jr. is going over that number. He has thrown for 300 or more passing yards 10 of 14 games this year. But as Donnie has alluded to, even if Washington is playing from behind, I think they air out the football. And Michigan is the second best passing defense in the country. Even slowing down Michael Penix Jr. means keeping him around 300. We'll have you covered on College Football Today's National Championship Special starting at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Donnie will have you covered tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern live right here on the Early Line.